Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 8 Letters Book Talk. Today, we have a very special guest, but before I ask her to introduce herself, I would like to ask her, how are you doing today, ma'am?
Oh, I think I'm very nervous right now because of this book talk, but at the same time, I'm excited to talk about it.
That's wonderful. We're going to try to make this just as chill and casual as possible. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's great.
I hope that you can enjoy this. Okay, so my first question is, I noticed you introduce yourself in the book as Eloise from Cafe of Thoughts for Christ and that you are a new author. Would you like to tell us more about yourself, your interest in writing, and your blog?
Yeah. So, sorry, it's Miss Gloria, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Um. So, Cafe of Thoughts, Eloise from the Cafe of Thoughts for Christ, because Cafe of Thoughts is a personal blog, which I started about 4 years ago, before the pandemic, if I'm not mistaken. It was initially called Disentangled Thoughts, as in like thoughts which are disentangled, because that's what it is. My idea was to just write what I think, just write about my thoughts, and I imagine that it's called Disentangled because once I read in a book that when you write, it's like your thoughts pass through the tip of your pen and there they get disentangled. So that's what I called it. And then um, actually, before I started that blog, I've already loved writing and I've been writing for a long time already. But I would write in my journals, in my diary, and it's like a hobby, a personal hobby, like a private activity that I love doing. And maybe in a way, it's a form of self expression as well. And I'm very keen on recording my experiences, important events, important memories in my life, important people as well. Especially when I was younger, when you have a diary and then you would write about your crushes, things like that, and other things that you thought was important during that time. And so I kept on writing. I was able to uh, like have a stack of notebooks of my writings, just personal experiences and reflections about life. And then when I started the blog, I wrote uh, Filipino poems. I mean, poems in Tagalog and short stories as well. And then, I was surprised because I did not expect that many people would relate to it. And for the first time, I got that feeling na it's like meeting a person online and then suddenly finding something in common. And uh, it made me really happy, and it inspired me, encouraged me to write more. And I decided to change the name to Cafe of Thoughts because one of my friends told me that it's too difficult to say disentangled thoughts. Like, yeah, there are so many syllables, and it's like you can't even shorten it because how would you shorten that? And so I decided to change the name to Cafe of Thoughts since I love coffee as well. And then later on, it became Cafe of Thoughts for Christ because there's been a change in the purpose of the page. And in this blog, I'd like to write about human emotions, human experiences, and uh, topics that explore our thoughts. Maybe because I'm also an introvert, so I have a lot of time to just sit down and think and write. And that's when I would think about my experiences and the experiences of other people. And when you do that, it's like you are trying to know a person deeper. You think about, for example, if a person made a decision, you think about what are the reasons behind that decision. You think about what this person values. You try to know the person deeper, and because of that, you gain more understanding of how people are very different and also how very similar. So that's what I learned in writing about human emotion experiences in my blog. And since I changed the name to Cafe of Thoughts for Christ, I also use this platform to encourage people to have a relationship with Jesus, because I am a Christian as well. And that, and I think because, only if we have a relationship with Him can those experiences make sense. Okay. And it's definitely not my first time writing, but this is my first time introducing myself as Eloise, as a writer of a book. And I would like people to recognize the book as being written by the same person whom they met at the blog. That's why I asked the publishers to write Eloise from the Cafe of Thoughts. And because also I wrote the book with them in mind, I mean the community there in the blog. And I really want to share this another kind of reading experience for them. Yeah, I think that's it. If that makes sense.
Yes, po, it totally makes sense. I just have to say, what you said about keeping diaries, I can totally relate to that because when I was younger, I had my mom would buy me a lot of notebooks because right, they'd encourage kids to read and write, right, because they want you to
Yes.
do that instead of touching your phone, and they'd rather see you read magazines or other books. So I would write down in my notebook, and I remember particularly I'd write about like Justin Bieber, 2000 peak of his stardom, and I would write about I remember I would also draw like stick figures when I would get pissed or when someone would fight with me in class. I would be like, I hate this day so much. It is
Yeah.
so. And then I realized now I'm an English literature major in Ateneo, that it was actually one of the best things that I did when I was younger because it allowed me to process my emotions better and to regulate what I feel. And I think what you said about learning more about yourself and about others and how similar and different we are, I think that's very much relatable because writing is a really good way for people to not only communicate to each other but learn more about themselves. And it's very interesting that you mention that you're Christian because coincidentally, my parents come from a Catholic community, particularly a marriage encounter Catholic community.
Mhm.
And from their experiences and my experiences also as a member of the community, I really related with the book so much. Like I could see a lot of important lessons there that I would only hear from the speakers that they'd invite or from the seminars that I would attend. And I think it really allowed me to appreciate the text. So, yeah, it's a great read, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, so for the next question, now we'll get into the book itself. So we would like to know what is home about and what was your process like? So what inspired you to write this book? Because I noticed the book felt very personal and
You could say that.
diaristic in a way. I was, yeah, diaristic. You said something about diary, so I was like, could it be something personal to Ma'am Eloise? So yeah, what is it about po?
Home. Okay, it's just one word. Actually, when I sent the title to the publishers, I suddenly had the thought maybe I should write, maybe I should put a period on I mean after letter E, like after the word, to say that it's a sentence. It's like saying home, like I'm home, like that. But then maybe I just thought, maybe I just don't want to give them a hard time anymore and just let them do what they're doing. And I think it won't really make that much of a difference though. But it's because the book was centered on home stories, stories that happened inside the home. And you would find that, I mean, I'm trying not to talk about the whole story, but home is about growing up and realizing that even the simplest decisions that we make can greatly affect our future, can greatly affect the way we see the rest of our lives. And it is also about doing what you believed was right, and then finding out later on that if given another chance, you won't make the same choice again. And this story has long been written, about maybe 3 years ago. If I remember correctly, I wrote this during, I don't know if it's during or before the pandemic, but I had a lot of free time during this season, so maybe that's why I was able to finish that. But I couldn't publish the book yet because it's not a priority at that time. But when you have an idea, a wish, a dream, a goal, and it keeps you awake at night, in your heart that you just have to do it. So years later, I stayed awake for the last time and decided to publish the book. And you were right in saying that maybe it's too personal, but at the same time, I'm not sure, but even though it's personal, I tried my best to write it in a way that the person who will read it, will still feel included. A person once told me that I usually write about topics or situations that people don't openly talk about. It's just like thoughts that people have but don't really speak out loud. And I think people would really relate to that in the book. And also, the reason why I finally decided to publish the book was I have friends and people who knew that I have written a book, and they kept on asking me, "Uy, kailan mo ba ipapublish yung book?" Or "Kailan ko kaya mababasa yung book mo?" Or "Waiting for your book," something like that. Or sometimes I would upload some lines from the book. I would upload it on the page or on my personal account, and then some people would ask me, what's the title of the book, or where can they get it? And then I would tell them, "Oh, I'm sorry, this is not published yet, and it's self-penned," things like that whatsoever. And then it really encouraged me to finally be able to. That's when I thought, maybe it's really relatable. Maybe they would find this relatable, and maybe it is worth the read, because some I uploaded just some parts of it, and I felt that they are interested in reading it, and it really encouraged me to to publish the book. The story, many parts of the story are my personal experiences, and I don't know how to talk about it without talking about it. My personal experiences. But the reason why I wrote this is I'd like to record the lessons, I'd like to record the experience, and I'd like to I want to prompt the reader to reflect on his or her own decisions, and also to reflect on what he or she values, to reflect on whether they are proud or not of the decisions they have made in life so far. I don't know if I answered your questions.
For sure, those were answered, ma'am. And just to add to the relatability, because you said a lot of people were telling you that they felt connected to your work and they're asking when you would publish it. I think I totally agree, because when I was reading the text, it felt like I was getting advice from an older sibling. So for context, I'm the eldest, so I don't get that. So when I was reading the book, it felt like, oh wow, like this seems very personal, but at the same time universal. And I was like, I was really excited to meet you today, because I wanted to know more about the book after reading it. Because that's the tendency, right? Like you read the book, you get interested in it, and you feel connected to it, and then you're excited to meet the person who wrote it. So yeah, that's one of the things that I appreciated about this book is how you displayed the vulnerability in such a way that a lot of people, regardless of what they're going through, are able to connect with the lessons that you included. And at the same time, I think it's very timely, especially for me, because I'm an incoming senior and pretty much just getting started in my adulthood journey.
Mhm.
And those lessons I think are very much applicable regardless of what you end up doing or what path or career you decide to pursue. So I
Mhm.
think I'll definitely keep those lessons in mind. And yeah, it will always be a good read for me.
Thank you.
So for the next question, I'm very curious to know this. It's actually one of the questions that I came up with first. So the book explores important lessons in and themes of grief, love, longing, sacrifice, and even mental health. What is your favorite lesson or takeaway from the book?
This is also the question that when you reviewed the question before the start of our book talk, I don't know how I would feel about this because I feel like whenever I start talking about the lessons, it makes me so emotional. It makes me so emotional. And actually, when there are some parts of the book where sometimes when I can't sleep at night, I would remember the book and I would read it again after some time because I'm trying to see if there are things that I need to change or how would I see it with fresh eyes, when I forgot about it already, and then I will read it again after a long time. And then my emotions are also fresh. And but it would be, for example, it would be 3 a.m. and then I would read a certain part of the book and then I'll just start crying again. It makes me so emotional. And well, because I think it does when, as people read on, they would find many situations there exploring, grief, love, longing, sacrifice, and mental health. And they would find many reflections of a young person and or the main character and how this main character perceives the world and the people around her. They would find many thoughts in that book. Many people might find a piece of themselves, some parts of themselves in the book, and they might tend to look inside yourself and ask questions about who they are as a parent, as a child, who they are as a sibling, as a dreamer, as a young professional like you, or a worker, or as different parts of society. One might begin to reflect on the decisions in life that he made so far and try to see if they were happy with all of them, or if they would change any of them, or how would that affect the future decisions that they might make. And my takeaway from the book, if you this part, I have to talk about it without being emotional. If you love people, you choose them. Okay, now where's my tissue? If you love people, you choose them. Because I'm tearing off because it's we usually say, oh, I love you, or oh, I love my parents, or I love this person, or I love this, I love you, I love but how do we really know that we love them? um do we choose them all the time? And do we always really choose to love? um Kasi we people, kasi we tend to think that there's always a next time, and I'm emotional. I'm sorry, is it okay to cry?
Definitely okay to cry, ma'am.
Kasi this experience kasi it changed me talaga as a person. Um, Before this book, I think I'm one of those people who are. I think I'm one of the many people who are not very expressive when it comes to showing love. Like, for example, to your parents, sometimes we think that it's enough to be a good child. It's enough to just do the chores around the house. It's enough um, to not do. I mean, it's enough not to disobey your parents. But after an experience of mine, I realized that if we love people, we really should show them. We should tell them. We should let them know, and we shouldn't just assume that they know. Because we don't always have the chance to. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
It's okay, ma'am. It's totally okay. Let it out.
Ayun, we don't assume that you always have the chance to love, and love when you can, choose love when you have a choice, and make sure that the people you love know that you love them. Yeah, yeah, that's all I think. Because if I say more, I think I would just cry here. I think you just do the talking from now.
Those are very wise words, ma'am. And I'll give you a minute to let yourself feel more calm. I'll be the one sharing my favorite. And this won't spoil anything from the book. It's just something I felt resonated with me the most, and something that really like prompted this light bulb in my brain, like, oh wow, like this is so good, like this is what I love. So it's on page 45 specifically. You wrote, while good things cannot stay the same eternally, the same goes for the unpleasant things. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. So I like this very much because I think it takes a lot of experience and wisdom before a person can realize this life truth that the good and bad need to coexist for people to grow and to continue to appreciate what they have in life. And I think it also gives people a lot of ease in knowing that if you're going through something difficult right now, if you're feeling down, if you have issues that you need to resolve, they will all eventually end, and that you will experience the good things. But at the same time, it allows you to appreciate the good things, because just like bad things, those good experiences will also end. So I think it's very powerful, and I think it can be applied to people from different backgrounds, age groups, different paths. I think it's a strong message, and I think yeah, go read the book, guys, because that's just one. That's just one. Because I can't talk about everything that I liked from the book, but this is probably my favorite at the moment.
Thank you for that.
Okay. So, just out of curiosity, and maybe to widen the scope of our discussion, and also to help you not cry further in this book talk, ma'am. So, I would like to ask, how can you convince and encourage the Filipino youth to engage with Philippine literature, particularly texts that explore the Filipino diaspora?
Okay, first let's talk about Philippine literature. I think um, Philippine culture, the Philippine culture is really rich. I'm saying rich because, I mean, by the way I say rich, I mean it's not boring to talk about, and you'll find many interesting topics to read about, because there is something very different, very deep in the way we Filipinos feel and describe love, life, family, relationships, experiences. Maybe because we put great value on these things, and we value, for example, family relationships. So, I think a lot of our character, most of the way that our character is built, our families that where we grew up with has a lot of influence in it, and it also has a great impact on the way we feel, the way we think, the way we create relationships with other people, the way we respond also to those relationships, the way we respond to our life experiences. I think we could be sometimes we could be very dramatic and emotional when it comes to describing these experiences, and they are very interesting topics to talk about. Just talking about the Philippine culture, for example, well, this is not a book, okay, but this is something that explores Philippine culture. I remember, what's the name actually? Maria Clara at Ibarra from the GMA7. Wow, I'm so impressed with that series. And you would see there how interesting it is. Especially, I'm thinking if it were a book, I would have loved to read it. And also, not only the culture but the language as well. Although it's not really one of my strong points. I tried writing in Filipino, but I think other people can write better. Um, but we have a lot of very how would I call it? The words, for example, for the word love, we have different ways to say love, or we have many names for love. For example, for example, and then wala maisip, we have many ways to address people. For example, mahal, irog, pag-ibig, things like that. And it hits differently. I think Philippine literature hits differently, and you would find it very, very stimulating and very relatable. Well, for me, in my book, I wrote about uh, the experiences of a person who is actually away from home. And I've met a lot of people with similar stories as mine, as also as someone who works abroad. And um, you would see that not only there are many struggles and challenges when you work. I mean, everybody has got struggles and challenges, whatever you work. But when you work abroad, you have to sacrifice being close to your family. You would have to miss many things. You would have to miss birthdays, important events. You would have to sacrifice those things. And a lot of people chose to do that because life is hard, and they have to make decisions for the future, and they have to make sacrifices. And uh, wait, I forgot what I was going to say. I'm sorry. Yeah, so that's what I wrote about. And you would see that when it comes to that, you will see how much we value family relationships, how much we value, you know, um, being able to provide as well. I think that's one of the Filipino traits, which could be toxic sometimes, but that's what we do. And if we explore more of these topics, we would understand why people had to do what they do. For example, when I was younger, I would think, bakit kailangan nilang lumayo? Yung mga parents who are far away from their children, it's like I never understood why they would choose to, for example, those who are caregivers, for example, why would they choose to take care of other people? And I feel like, oh, if I were a parent, I would never do that. I would never ever do that. I would do my best. I would sacrifice. I would do what it takes just to make sure that I grew up with my child. But then, I met many Filipinos here, and I've heard their stories, and that opened my mind, and I saw that, wow, people are really different. You would never know unless you're in that situation. and and when we explore those topics, when we read about those topics, we tend to understand people more, and I think we grow our character as well. And actually, I love writing for the Filipino readers because because I'm a Filipino and I think I know how a Filipino thinks, I know how a Filipino feel, I know what a Filipino values, and and I know that we would relate in some kind, in some way. And when I write a book, actually, I imagine that I'm having a one-on-one, not just a book, but when I write on a blog, I imagine that I am having a one-on-one conversation with someone. Not, it's not like I'm addressing the crowd. It's not like, hey everyone, I have something to say, because also I can't do that in person as well. So that's what I do when I write. I feel like I'm talking to a friend. Sometimes when I write, I imagine a person and I imagine her life situation, and then I wrote about it as if I'm talking to her. And when you read books like that, I think you would find it very relatable, and it will give you lessons. Um, uh, you would see the world in a way that your experience can't. Yeah, that's what I think.
I agree with you, ma'am. Actually, I think since the pandemic, I think we've seen a surge of young people wanting to get into reading, right? A lot of them would, I think it became a trend eventually that people were reading the classics, or rather
Mhm.
the popular books, those that have like a huge fan base already in Western
Mhm.
countries, like in the US or Europe. And I think what you said there about Philippine literature having a lot of gems or a lot of beautiful um, texts to discover, I think that's very true, because also as an English major, you can see that we are naturally, or like we have this tendency to lean towards the canon, the classic texts, right? Like that's what we
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
study, that's what we navigate towards. But at the end of the day, and I also took a class last semester on the Filipino diaspora, and I realized there that there are so many texts outside what we call the classics or the Western canon, and that a lot of Filipino authors are actually good. And I
Mhm.
think that one of my main realizations from the class is that um, books like yours, like Home, that share a diverse or a complex experience that not all Filipinos would go through, or not all Filipinos would have the chance to know about, or um, parang not all of them would meet someone who went through a situation like that. I think it's so important to um, spread awareness about those kind of experiences, and at the same time um, talk about like what you said, what those people have to go through, the decisions that they had to make, and how, because I think sometimes, a lot of people, they tend to be blinded with their privilege, or they tend to be living in this small circle or pond of people and experiences that they have, that they don't realize that there are people out there with um, very different challenges and experiences from them, that are very much important, and that they can learn so much from these texts. So I think that's one of the reasons why Home is very important. And not just because I enjoyed it, like seriously enjoyed it, but because it really opens, especially the youth, it opens their perspective to a wider array of Filipino experiences that are not necessarily talked
Mhm.
about or acknowledged today. So yeah,
Mhm.
so thank you
You
so
know,
much.
I remember when I'm not sure if this is related, but I also wrote something. It's not finished yet. I wrote, I'm a big fan of Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice. It's like I watched the movie like 20 times already or more. And I also love the book. So I was inspired to write a book that's, inspired by the story Pride and Prejudice. And I remember researching about the culture there, the time there, the time period, what do people do, what do they wear, how do they think, how do they speak. And I have written quite a few chapters already. And I was really enjoying the book. And then I stopped writing because I didn't have time. And then Recently I reread the book again, and then I started to reflect on whether or not it would be relatable because, I wrote it out of passion. And, I'm happy that I did. But then when I think about wanting to share it with especially the Filipino readers, I thought about how relatable the experiences would be. And so I decided, okay, maybe this is not something I would finish. Maybe I would write the story again, but I would change the setting to Philippine setting. The people would have to be Filipinos. The experiences would have to be Filipino related, and the culture should be of Filipino as well because I think it would be more relatable and it would make more sense. Um, People could easily relate to the story if they are familiar with the culture, with the feeling, with the emotions, with the values in the story. Aalala ko lang.
I mean, if you ever decide to publish that, mom, I would wait for it. Like, sincerely. I would wait for it because I really like this one. And this is like the first text from you that I've read, right? So, yeah, I'll definitely watch out for that if you ever decide to publish it someday or finish it.
Thank you.
So, for our last question, this is just the time for you to share a message to your readers or anything that you would like to share. And this is also your opportunity to promote your book and yourself before we officially end this book talk.
Okay. So I don't usually like to address people, but this time let me tell you that wow, we finally we finally published the book, and for those who are waiting for this book, I am very happy, and you're the people on my mind when I'm in doubt whether I should publish the book or not. And your words gave me encouragement. Your interest inspired me um, to try because publishing a book could be for the first time could be very scary, and I'm not sure if people would read the book. But I told myself I'm publishing this book because I want the people who waited to read it. And if they were able to read it, and if only those people read it, then I am satisfied. Because as a writer, it is my joy already to, if one person reads my book, then wow, what a joy already. But this book, I really want you to try and see what's in there for you in the book. And I put my all of my heart into it. And when I wrote this, I imagine talking to one of you and sharing this story to you heart to heart, and telling you things that you might not hear from other people. And also, I'd like to thank everyone for supporting the blog so far and the kind messages that you leave on my page. Although I never uploaded any of it, it's my private joy and a source of encouragement when I'm in doubt. And also, I'm happy to have this skill. And although I do not own this skill, and I'm so happy that God is using me in this very simple manner. And actually, my name is on the book, but the truth is, there's really nothing much that I can offer. And if there's anything good about the book, I think it's just God doing His work. And I'm happy also and grateful to the publishers for doing their job and for doing their best. And also to you, thank you, Miss Gloria, for this opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Eloise. Thank you for that message. I'm sure that we will encourage a lot of readers to read the book and see what's in store for them. I like what you said. There's something in store for them. They just have to look for it and read it, right? Yeah. So, thank you so much for joining us today in this book talk. To our
Mhm.
viewers, thank you for tuning in another episode of 8 Letters Book Talk. I'm Gloria, and we'll see you again next time. Bye!
Bye.